Charitable organizations across Ontario stepped up right from day one of this pandemic. But that spike in need, combined with economic hardship among clients, volunteers, and donors, has made the way forward tricky for many charities. With us now for more, in Sudbury, Ontario, Helen Francis. She's president and CEO of the YMCA of Northeastern Ontario. In the West End of the provincial capital, Paul Taylor, executive director of FoodShare Toronto. And in Midtown, Bruce Macdonald, president and CEO of Imagine Canada. And we're grateful to the three of you for coming on to TVO tonight. And let's just start with, give us 20 seconds each of you on what it is that your organizations actually do. Helen, get us started.
Certainly. Well, for the YMCA of Northern Ontario, we really are about trying to build healthy communities through addressing people in spirit, mind, and body, and ability to everybody and each other around the globe. We do ways through employment and immigrant services, through our licensed child, both in home and in centres, and then through the majority of people identify with the YMCA, which is through health, fitness, aquatics, so includes camping, overnight camping.
Great. Paul, follow up if you would. What do you guys do?
Yeah, FoodShare, we're focused on challenging food insecurity, and we do that by working alongside low-income communities to build community-led food infrastructure. So we're talking about urban farms, school food programs, subsidized produce markets, and we also advocate for the type of public policies that ultimately are going to eradicate food insecurity and poverty in this country.
And Bruce?
Yeah, well, Imagine Canada is a national registered charity, and we seek to improve the operating environment in which charities, nonprofits, and social entrepreneurs function. And so if we're successful, if both Helen and Paul's organizations are in fact more successful, we do that through public policy advocacy at a federal level, through the provision of research and information. We actually accredit charities for good governance, transparency, and accountability. And we seek to engage with Canadians to invite them to think deeply about social good in their communities.
Well, when there is not a global pandemic happening, we're going to share some numbers now with what life is normally like for organizations such as yours. This, according to the Ontario Nonprofit Network, last year there were 58,000 nonprofits and charitable organizations in the province of Ontario, and of course, TVO is one of them. They employ 1 million people. They've got $50 billion worth of economic impact, and their 5 million volunteers help them with services. They receive less than half of their revenue from all levels of government combined. So with all of that at stake, I guess the next question we have is, we're not living in normal times now, so we really want to get a better understanding of what COVID-19 has done to your ability to do what you normally do. Helen, go ahead.
Certainly. Well, the easiest breakdown is that over the course of April to August, our associate lost close to $4 million in revenue, which is over about 20% of the typical annual revenue that we would receive. So as you can imagine, as a charity for tight margins, that is very for us to sustain, and it's in a very precarious position.
Paul, what's COVID-19 done to you guys?
Yeah, okay. The first thing I would say is, we've seen significant impact. We're in a tricky position in that we operate a social enterprise that generates revenues to support some of our work. We have this thing called the Good Food Box, where we sell boxes of fresh produce that we deliver to people's homes across the city. We also sell produce in bulk, largely to schools. And for us, that's our largest revenue generator. We're talking about $35,000 to $40,000 a week during the school year, or close to $1.5 million. So once the pandemic hit, that revenue disappeared completely. And it's also causing us to have to cancel our annual fundraiser in 2021. It's our largest fundraiser of the year, something that we call Recipe for Change.
Well, when we had our annual fundraising gala canceled, because of course you can't gather in groups of 200 or 300 anymore, we simply did it on TV and still managed to raise some money. That was a good option for a TV station, but you're not in the TV business. So how do you rethink what you do if you can't do a gala?
This is the big thing, and I think lots of organizations have pivoted to doing things online, but we have to remember not everyone has stable and consistent access to the internet. So, yeah, and we also, I'm seeing a lot of nonprofits shift galas and events to online, but it's a really saturated place at the moment. I think everyone is trying to rethink how to generate that revenue. So we've decided we're going to take a step back and look at what we can do outside of bringing people to a screen.
Bruce, what are you guys seeing in terms of the impact of COVID-19?
Well, it's widespread. It's hitting every part of our sector. We had gone out and asked sector leaders the impact of their organizations in the spring. And already in April, 30% of organizational leaders had laid off staff. Another 55% were saying that future cuts were a possibility. You compare that to the 08-09 economic collapse, only 23% actually laid off staff. So you can see that this pandemic is widespread and much deeper.
Helen, we know that the issues and the problems, the challenges that Northern Ontario poses are different from those that we experience here in the South. So how are you encountering COVID-19 challenges, say, differently than other charitable organizations south of the French River?
Well, I'm not sure that there is all that much that's different. The challenges are the same. We probably have some advantages with our geography in the sense that the number of COVID cases aren't as high up here in the north. However, the impact in terms of making sure that we have additional protocols in place, which includes additional costs for personal protective equipment, et cetera, are all, they're as taxing as they need to be, but they certainly do cost organizations like ours more money. I would also echo the point that Paul made that as we have tried to move a number of our programs and services to virtual world, that is great in the sense that we've been able to pivot quickly, but certainly here in the north, access to the internet is not either reliable or widely available for everybody. And then in addition, a number of the vulnerable sections of our society that we are trying to do to support on a basis, but certainly with more emphasis during the pandemic, don't often have access to the devices, be those cell phones or laptops, to even connect to the internet, even if they had it.
Helen, I'm sorry to say, I think we can confirm that there are definitely broadband issues in the north, because your feed is very glitchy right now, but we're getting the gist of it, I think. We're getting the gist of what you're trying to say. So hang in there, and let's hope the wind changes direction or something so we can get a somewhat better signal coming out of Sudbury. Paul, let me switch to you right now. I know there's this expression that everybody likes to use, that we're all in this thing together, which is true as far as it goes, but the fact is that some people are getting hit by this pandemic a lot harder than others. And I wonder how FoodShare has been able to fill any of those gaps that would be out there.
For sure. And Steve, the first thing I want to say is, with conversations like these, I think it's also really important to acknowledge the challenges of running a charity and doing the work that FoodShare does even before the pandemic. You know, what we're now calling these pre-existing conditions. You know, these pre-existing conditions are due to generations of government downloading when it comes to addressing wicked problems like poverty and food insecurity onto the charitable sector instead of through effective public policy. So I think, you know, we're feeling a strain right now, but that is just compounded when we consider the generations of downloading. What FoodShare's done, recognizing that we're all not experiencing the pandemic in the same way, we're all not at home making sourdough bread. Some folks are forced to head off to work each and every day. I see them on the buses, I see them in transit. I remember being so horrified at the beginning of the pandemic and seeing often Black and brown women on those buses headed to work that we've pushed to the front lines of the pandemic. So with that knowledge, FoodShare said, we are going to pivot and launch something, a bit of a variation of our Good Food Box. We launched something called the Emergency Good Food Box, where we were sending out fresh produce to families, thousands of families across the city. And what we did is we partnered with organizations that work specifically with BIPOC folks, Black, Indigenous, racialized groups, because we know that these are the groups that experience food insecurity to higher degrees, and wanted to make sure that our support was getting to those folks as well.
But that's what I want to understand. If your revenues are down for the reasons you told us earlier, but the demand is up because of this global pandemic, how do you do what you do?
We've been a little bit fortunate. It's a kind of a double-edged sword. It's a little bit tricky. We've been really fortunate. You know, folks have reached into their pockets. A lot of folks have been able to donate $5, $10, $20, and that's allowed us to get these emergency good food boxes out the door. What that's done also is made our organization ineligible for the wage subsidy because we didn't demonstrate a loss of revenue. We've actually seen a little bit of an increase based on how we were positioned to respond to the pandemic. So we raised some funds that was specifically for responding to the pandemic and folks' food needs. But again, that made us ineligible for the programs like the wage subsidy. Had we just sat on our hands, perhaps we could have accessed the wage subsidy.
Interesting. Although you're a great example, I guess, of how there are plenty of people with big hearts out there. That's kind of a happy parable to the story, is it not?
To some extent, happy people and wonderful hearts should not be what we rely on to advance basic human rights and access to food and housing and the like.
I hear you. Helen, let me go back to you on this. You pointed out earlier that your bottom line took a 20% hit. Have you had to lay people off or cancel programs, that kind of thing?
We've been fortunate that we were receiving a lot of support from the Canadian Employment Wage Subsidy, thanks to the federal government. So after initially laying off the majority of our employees, close to 95%, we were able to recall them. The piece of work that we're currently trying to navigate is not only how we secure ourselves through this current fiscal year, which, similar to Paul, we have launched a fundraising campaign, My Wise Resilient, and our communities are getting behind that and supporting us really well. The greater challenge for us will be 2021, 2022, when we continue to navigate the pandemic. Obviously, there's an associated economic recession that we will be going through. And we know that we will still need to play the role we've been playing, that the vulnerable people in our communities will need the YMCA of Northeastern Ontario, perhaps even more than they did. We typically, on a regular basis, support 25 to 35% of our membership who need financial assistance in order to access programs and services at the Y. So we provide that support. We anticipate moving forward, the numbers in our community needing that support will grow. And yet, at the same time, our overall membership to our health, fitness, and aquatic centres and the members who can afford to pay full fee, because again, similar to Paul, we run a service model, will likely diminish. And that's just going to put increased pressure on our ability to remain relevant, have impact, and importantly, be sustainable for the long run.
Bruce, let's pivot here and have you tell us, given the mission of your organization, you would have a good sense sort of from 30,000 feet about which charitable organizations are having a particularly tough time or maybe a tougher time than others during this pandemic. Can you point us in that direction?
Sure, absolutely. And there's some real patterns and trends here. I mean, we see the groupings of organizations where they've witnessed both a surge in demand and a surge in sometimes in support, whether it's governmental support, corporations, or individuals. But we're also seeing this kind of collective of organizations that is seeing both a collapse of demand and a collapse of support. And those might be things like arts and culture, theaters, orchestras, ballet, as well, sport and recreation, whether it's YMCAs or Boys and Girls Clubs. The common denominator has been place-based gatherings and organizations whose revenue streams are very reliant on sort of earned income or member fees, those kinds of ticket sales, that type of stuff, where they're not able to bring people together. It's really difficult. And there's many companion services that relate to helping communities have their economies restart. It's difficult for citizens to go back to their places of work if their charitable and nonprofit daycare providers aren't there, or if they've experienced mental health distress during the pandemic. If those organizations who've been providing counseling and services don't exist, it'll be challenging for community economic recovery to take place.
Bruce, let me do this follow-up with you. If you run an art gallery or if you run a symphony orchestra or something like that, I mean, I know that the people who run those organizations send out emails to their members or their subscription series people saying, look, I know we're closed. I know we've got no concerts, but we'd love to keep your money. Could you just donate it to us? Now, those entreaties are going out. Do you know how they're being received?
Well, we don't have any real-time data. It's one of the ongoing challenges with our sector. But what I can tell you anecdotally is that organizations are doing that they're having some success likely not to the same degree as if they were having their in-person events and concerts, but that there is a response of generosity. Further to Helen's comment, though, the question will be, what happens with that the longer this goes and into 2021? Will people who said, you know what, I'm going to let my ticket sales ride this year and turn that into a donation, will that take place again next year? The same with corporations. And I think those are big questions that our sector is asking. As
in, people might be generous to ride out the remainder of one calendar year, but maybe not two. Is that the fear?
Yeah, and I think, especially when you look at corporate sponsorships, if their business interests reassert themselves, the money was coming from a marketing budget, and they're no longer going to derive the marketing benefit at a 2,000-person gala. This year, they pretty much said, you know what, keep the money, use it for what the organization's mission is. We're not sure if that same mindset will take place in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Paul, tell us this. Presumably, there have been extra costs incurred in order to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you tell us what those might be?
Absolutely. The cost of PPE, the cost of pivoting. For us, because we launched this emergency good food box and there was a demand for a normal good food box, we had to get more drivers on the road. We're renting more vehicles. The costs have been pretty significant. And these are costs that we, of course, like other charities, never would have imagined.
And Helen, how about for you? I mean, have you been able to keep the YMCA open for people to come in and exercise, that kind of thing?
We did not initially. We had about 6 months actually locked down from April to pretty much September the 8th. Facilities in North Bay and Chippewa were closed, able to access our membership revenue as we typically would. We did open and pivot to allow both of those facilities to be used by vulnerable populations, both as an emergency homeless shelter in North Bay and as a means of access to washrooms, computers, and telephones for the vulnerable inside. So we've continued to pivot and play a role. However, our childcare centres did operate and provided childcare essential frontline workers and have found ways to operate and serve the community through every single phase of the province's both closure and reopening. And then for employment and immigrant settlement services, they very quickly were able to pivot and move to the virtual world, largely intact.
And do I assume that the costs of cleaning childcare centres and athletic centres and the like have gone through the roof?
Absolutely. Childcare is a very interesting model, and naturally, all of these precautions are required to keep on COVID transmission. There's obviously increased cleaning, but there is also the need and necessity to have a lot of relief staff that haven't worked with other cohorts of children or other centres. So it tends to be a very resourceful in terms of staffing model as we navigate this pandemic as well. And then in our health, fitness, and aquatic centres, absolutely, it's making sure that we have every high touch contact location, either within the facility or on equipment or tools, clean very frequently. And it's also included buying new equipment so that we can do that and ensure that 360-degree surface contact is achieved through the cleaning products versus a wet and wipe kind of approach. So, yep, there's been a lot of challenges. At the same time, there's positives. We found ways to pivot and work differently with partners that have been, I think, to the benefit of our communities, and certainly speak to ways in which we can ultimately transform ourselves to be resilient and remain here, playing the role in Northeast Ontario that we want to.
Bruce, I kind of joked might not be the right word, but I pointed out earlier that when a TV station can't hold its annual gala, you can put it on TV and you can still raise some money. And we did have a telethon and raise some really important dollars for the operation of this place. But that clearly is not an option that's open to a lot of other charitable organizations. What are you hearing in terms of what others are doing to try to replace those 2 and 3 and 4 and 500 person galas that were so important for fundraising?
Well, they're getting inventive. They're doing everything from have your gala dinner at home and watch a broadcast online about the importance of the mission or cause. Or they're taking those, fun run events, those 10Ks, and saying, well, do them on your own, but register to show that you've participated. I think one of the things, though, that this pandemic has highlighted is the disconnect or the paradox that our sector lives in, because at a time when our sector needs to adapt quickly to moving in a digital world, it's highlighting or spotlighting the fact that for over a decade or more, funders of all kinds have been reticent to invest in what they would call cost of administration. Well, that falls into infrastructure, digital capacity, talented people that know how to do this. And at a time when we need it more than ever, the cupboard's a bit bare. So it's really hard for organizations to make these adaptations quickly because they haven't necessarily had the financial and infrastructure capacities to be able to do that.
And let me follow up with this, Bruce. One of the reasons besides supporting a good cause that people would want to shell out, $50, $100, $200, in some cases for the big ones, $1,000 or $10,000 for a table for a big charitable fundraiser, is that people like to be with people. They like to mingle. They want to get out and schmooze and dance and do whatever it is they do at these things, which you can't do on Zoom. I'm sorry, Zoom's good for a lot of things, but it isn't good for that. So are these fundraisers still working to the extent they used to when people can't actually be with each other?
Yeah, I would say, again, going back to the fact that I can't honestly tell you from a quantitative standpoint, I would say qualitatively, though, I'm hearing that they don't work quite as well. And that while some people are converting their ticket sales into contributions, not everybody is. And to your point, the experience isn't exactly the same. So I think what we're seeing sector leaders do is to say, how do we find different ways of telling our story in a digital environment to try and bring that personal connection to people who have supported us in the past? And in some cases, and I'm certainly hearing this in the faith-based world, to people who didn't go to church every Sunday. Now they've got hundreds more who are tuning in on a Sunday digitally, and maybe there's an opportunity to bring that message in a different way. So I think it's really going to be about innovation and adaptation.
Helen, are you able to offer online services via Zoom or Skype in ways that are satisfactory enough to keep people engaged?
I would say yes. We have offered different ways. We have Y at Home, which provides lots of health and activity-based exercises for all sorts of physical capability, as well as age groups, including Y Gym, which was initiated here in the North, but it was designed particularly to support children at home during the lockdown education online. And it was supported by about 50 different school boards that endorsed it ultimately. The other component that we launched in partnership with Canada College and supported by the Alzheimer's Society was called Disco Hub, and it was a real inclusion and basically seniors connections and opportunities. And it's to really help our older adults who, of course, during the pandemic, but all the time in this current era, really need to understand digital tools to access services that they need on a day-to-day basis, be it groceries, refilling their pens. But we also added a component which was intended to try to break down some of that isolation that we were feeling when we've been into our homes or remaining safe at home for those older demographics. It's been good. I would say, though, that we have chosen now to make all of those tools available for, you don't have to be a Y member. So there is no component to that work that we have monetized.
Got it. And Paul, how about you? Are you doing things online now that you didn't do before COVID?
In a very limited way. We had, I think, hosted 4 or 5 panels online. We have a program that has chefs cooking with youth and children at home. But ultimately, we have said intentionally, we're not going to just transition all of our programs to online. They often they won't work well online. And also, like I said earlier, not everyone has access. So from an equity perspective, we wanted to be really mindful of who would be losing out if we did transition everything to online.
Right. Okay, Paul, let me put this one to you because I believe you and Angus Reid together, Bruce, I'm going to put this to you because it was Imagine Canada that was involved in this one. You found that people were making fewer donations, and more than that, you were picking up, I gather, some distrust among charities because of the situation surrounding me to we. That's the concern anyway. How much empirical evidence are you finding that would support that concern?
Well, I think we're hearing from organizations who are saying it is definitely top of mind for their donors, in particular, sometimes their volunteers. So they're asking more questions about their governance practices, their accountability practices, and their transparency practices. I mean, I think the good news was that the study found that 6 in 10 said it's unlikely to affect their giving habits right now. But I think given the fact that trust is at the heart of the offering and the relationship that charities and nonprofits have with the public, it's essential that our sector take a look at what we're doing and make sure that we're doing everything possible to demonstrate the highest levels of good governance, transparency, and accountability.
So as long as you continue to demonstrate good ethical conduct, you have every reason to believe that the charitable donations will continue to come in next year.
Absolutely. This is a great sector, stewarded by volunteers and staff who care deeply to be good stewards of time and money, and they're doing everything possible. And I think as more and more Canadians take a good look at this sector as a result of the pandemic and are affected by the sector as a result of the pandemic, I think they're going to like what they see.
I wonder if you could make a comparison between what we're going through now and say what we went through in 2008 at the time of the Great Recession, when presumably charitable giving was down a lot as people had to deal with the ravages of that economic problem. How long did it take to come back, and what was that like?
Yeah, it took a number of years to come back. Actually, it was about, if you look at the giving trends, it was about 5 years before they actually restored to pre-08 levels. This, though, is much deeper, because one of the differences was that the last time, if financial institutions were down in their giving, organizations switched and said, well, we'll talk to oil and gas and resources, or we'll talk to, insurance companies. It's across the board. Everybody's getting hit. Every type of fundraising stream is being effective. So we are seeing that, when we're thinking that this is going to be much longer term recovery for our sector than 08-09.
Paul, you want to compare and contrast today versus the Great Recession?
Yeah, the one thing that I keep in the back of my mind that's a real fear of mine is actually that we're going to see an explosion of charities. We saw that after the recession in the 80s. I'm not sure about 2008. But I just, these are, like I said earlier, these are issues that have been largely downloaded onto charities. And I worry as I see folks in my community and communities across the city and across the country really struggle with this moral imperative. Like, how do I make sure that my neighbors have something to eat? So, there's a lot of, things that have popped up, charitable interventions that have popped up. And I worry that we're going to further enshrine charity as a response to these wicked issues that ultimately really need the governments to come to the table more meaningfully with public policy-based interventions.
Helen, same question to you. What are you noticing this time about how long it might take to come back versus, say, at the Great Recession?
Yeah, I think it's just, the point that Bruce made around how deep this goes, and that it's not easy to just turn to another sector and necessarily ask for their support, because everybody's feeling the pain in some way, shape, or form. There are probably a few exceptions, but it's largely true. And I think for us, what it comes down to is we are trying to find ways to both stabilize our association as it stands now, so that we can actually do all the necessary work to understand how do we transform ourselves so that we can find a way to work with our government partners, to work with other organizations to ensure that we can play our role. Perhaps it looks a little different if our community need is slightly changing, but how do we do that but still do so in a way that we can be economically viable? And the real message is that if we don't find those funds to help us stabilize and to support our transformation, I know, speaking on behalf of my association, that 2021, 2022, our existence is by no means guaranteed. And I would dare say that there are many other charities that are in the same position.
That's a really important point. Can I just put the accent on that? Because the YMCA has been around forever, and the notion that it wouldn't be around in the future is almost unimaginable. But are you telling us right now that what you're dealing with is an existential crisis?
It is. We've been around in Canada for over 160 years. In Sudbury alone, it's going to be 85 years next year, and in North Bay, it's 63 years. So we're well established. We've been a foundational part of our communities for numerous years, and for those years have been largely self-sufficient. Yes, we've struggled through different financial challenges in the past, but we found ways to adjust and adapt. The nature of this specific health crisis and the financial crisis led to is just so deep that fortunately we really do need government support to come to the table to help us navigate this and make sure that we can prepare for the future.
Bruce, I would imagine that you get to deal with a lot of rich people in your line of work who you would like to encourage to give. And I wonder if you think they understand that, given the lay of the land today, it is particularly incumbent upon them as people of means to dig down deeper right now. What do you think?
Well, yes. I think not just individuals of means, but corporations, foundations, and the continued support of government. It's going to take a collective effort to ensure that our most recent thinking is that sector leaders, 1 in 5, are saying that they won't be around in the next year. That will be problematic for communities because it'll mean the disappearance of services that people count on. So it's going to be critically important that as those, particularly who are more affluent, who maybe haven't seen the impact, if the stock markets have been good, their portfolios are doing all right, to be able to dig a bit deeper and say, how might I support those organizations so people in my communities still have access to those vital services?
Gotcha. I want to thank the three of you for joining us on TVO tonight. Helen Francis from the YMCA of Northeastern Ontario, Bruce Macdonald, President, CEO, Imagine Canada, Paul Taylor, FoodShare Toronto. Great to have the three of you on. And as I, of course, want to pass along my best wishes to the three of you for the good work that you are doing. Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.